A parishioner said to me one day, "Deacon, I saw you driving from the post office without your seatbelt on." Another time, a friend texted me saying, "You just cut me off." Well, you were driving right into your neighborhood and you just cut me right off. And how many times I've heard people say to me, "What you said to me was hurtful." In each case, I was unaware of the infraction until being called out. It's possible and actually quite likely that I was guilty of some of these things. Seemingly unconsequential events. So let me ask you, wouldn't it be great if you had a Nathan in your life and give you an analogous story of sin that would compel you to essentially convict yourself? See, Nathan tells a story that relates so well to so many of the sins that David, an experienced judge and king, had committed. I shudder to think how many times I have sinned in such a way as to need a Nathan to show me my sinfulness. Since we usually don't have a Nathan, we need to practice, and we need to get really good at examining our consciences, don't we, friends? Say yes, Deacon. How many others saw what David did and were inspired to sin likewise, or have hatred for David? We certainly recognize Bathsheba's situation from the plain wording. She was stolen from her husband Uriah. What a terrible thing. However, I wonder if there's any culpability for what she did or didn't do. Could she have prevented the episode in any number of times along the way? Not to take away from what David did, which was horrible. Ask yourself, how many times have I failed to stand up for life, for real marriage, for just stewardship of the family purse? Ask yourself, how many times have I viewed other people's bodies in person from a distance, on billboards, store displays, newspapers, magazines, or on the internet? Ask yourself, how many times have I been called to call out somebody's sin and I didn't do it? I wasn't like Nathan. Lots of people ask themselves these questions these days. People close to the men who have recently been exposed for terrible violations to women, powerful people in entertainment, politics, journalism. And on my way here this evening, I heard on the radio about that same thing happening in a family. Some people say that the culture of contraception might have contributed to this culture of corruption. Longtime journalist Peggy Noonan, in a recent column, quoted a priest that she knows who said this, quote, "Contraception degenerates men as does abortion. Once you separate sex from seriousness, once you separate it from its life-changing, life-giving potential, men will come to see it just as another want, a desire like any other. Once they think that, they will think sexual violations are less serious, less charged, less full of weight. And then they tend to rationalize it more. It's only petty theft, a pack of gum on the counter, and so I took it." And that's what David did, what he thought at first. He saw the beautiful woman and he took her. Petty theft? Oh, what a web we weave. Catholic apologist Stephen Wynn writes that contraception sparks self-indulgence rather than self-sacrifice and devotion. Men in particular become lust-driven. Along the way, masculinity dissipates. Men turn inward, away from virtue and towards self-gratification. Before long, they begin feeding on the women they would otherwise die to defend. Likewise, were there or could there have been someone to protect Bathsheba, to prevent the scandals? Was nobody around to protect Bathsheba? Of course, when I sit myself down to do an excellent examination of conscience before going to confession, too often I say to myself, well, I haven't been that bad this month. Wrong answer. Say it. Wrong answer. We say, through my fault, through my fault, through my... They know this stuff, fathers. Thank you, fathers, for being here. Because what we need to know is, what is my most grievous fault? What is your most grievous fault, my friends? What is that sin that you won't let go? I have to ask myself, what is that sin that I won't let go? What is that fault that I have to confess every single time I go in and visit with Father? And beg for penance and reconciliation. Every time I am selfish, I can tie that selfishness to a negative effect on my family. That's right, everything that I do that is sinful puts a stain on the family reputation, or financially steals from them, or steals time from them, or a missed opportunity to build on my relationships with my family members, to either help build emotionally, spiritually, or physically. I strain the relationship with every one of my sins, and I have that to blame myself alone. I must find a way to seek forgiveness from whomever I have sinned against. And since we're all made in the image and likeness of God, I must bring those sins to Him as well. I must not shortchange God by saying, oh, God will forgive me. If God was to ask you, forgive you for what? Would you be able to recall for what? And if you don't practice regularly using that mental, spiritual, and emotional muscle, can you effectively answer the questions and truly seek forgiveness? Finally, thanks be to God, David said, I have sinned against the Lord. Say it with me. I have sinned against the Lord, because we are all sinners. I'm looking out at a bunch of sinners here. And I pray for you. And I ask you to pray for me. Practice makes perfect. And when we regularly practice, go into confession, and we develop our own inner Nathan and allow ourselves to be properly formed to the teachings of Christ and His church, when we have the proper fear of the Lord that results in the beginning of wisdom that can properly beg Him for His loving mercy, that's when we have a credible claim to inner peace.